Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, a live look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for every UFC event. With your hosts, TV Scouting MMA and
The Guru, back again for UFC 280. Charles Du Bronx Oliveira taking on Islam Makhachev for the vacant, quote unquote, lightweight title. But before we can get into this banger of a UFC card, and I mean banger, card of the year probably, we've got a very, very special guest in the house. He is one of the premier sports journalists in MMA out there, period. And guys, this is not subjective. This is objective. This is a fact. This is not my opinion. This is factual information. Reporter for TSN Sports, Mr. Aaron Bronsteter. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I mean, I did my podcast earlier today where I was breaking down these fights, and I could do it every day until the fights go on because there's just so much to unlock and so much to look at. I love this card. Even from a betting perspective, I think that there's a lot of really good value on the board if you can find it. And I think I found it, but we'll talk about that as we go.
yes,
I love it. That's exactly what we want to hear. We want to hear what kind of value you see in this card and where to make the money, because that's what we're all about. We're coming off a 9-unit week last week. We killed it last week, so we need to kind of replicate that, keep that ball rolling.
yes.
So I did the opposite last week. I was like 0-unit. I had a terrible week last week. So yeah, well, I'm gonna try to switch to your momentum and get into your lane.
That's right. We're gonna bring you on. We got to bring all of our friends in, because we got to get this train rolling and keep it going, man. Until the end of the year, we want to hit at least 20 units of profit total. So make sure the first matter of business here, please like and subscribe. We just got our new website up, as you see, chroniccombat.com. Take a little stop over there. You can find us everywhere: Verdict, Tapology, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Twitter, it's at Chronic Combat. Instagram, Chronic Combat Conversations. So now that we got that out of the way, we got our MMA Journalist of the Year nominee, Aaron Bronsteter, in the house. The voting has closed, but I think we're waiting on the final results, right? So we should be hearing about that soon. And man, I'm so excited. And also the TSN MMA show.
Wait, hang on. We don't go.
All right. Yeah, I'm glossing. Hold on.
Don't gloss this. First off, the company up there, just absolutely extraordinary. If you guys are not following any of those 5 gentlemen up there, you're making a huge mistake. There's a bunch of other amazing people as well, included like Alex Bahunin. But Aaron, you absolutely belong up in that space. Your work is truly one of the more unparalleled works. I mean, it's just constant. You're always on it. You're cutting edge. And I think one of the most important things is you work with integrity. And it's something that in this business of clickbait and Jake Paul and all this nonsense, you're not that guy. And it for me as a true fan, it means a lot. So
thank you, guys. I mean, I wish you would have taken the updated voting picture because I asked them to change. People say that I look like Buster Bluth, and in this picture I do. I'll acknowledge that in this picture I probably do look like Buster Bluth. But 3 out of 5 Canadians in the running. So I like to see that. But those guys are all awesome. I agree with what you say, but at the same time, I understand that certain outlets and certain news organizations they live and die on clicks, right? And thankfully, I'm not at under those kind of instructions, I guess. It's just deliver good work, and I mean that lets me do the best kind of work and get nominated because of the faith that TSN puts in me to cover the sport properly.
That's a good thing. You love to hear about that type of relationship. And once again, I mean, there you go. The TSN MMA show. If you guys weren't already following that, I mean, look at how many episodes, 333. That's a lot of work this guy's been putting in on a consistent basis. And you really love to see it. Make sure you're following Aaron over there. And now that we've taken care of all of our housekeeping, as you guys can see, we've got one crazy pay-per-view, UFC 280. Yes, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. Does the champion have a name? That is the question. But really, I mean, you see Oliveira, he's going to come in. He's going to have a little bit of an advantage. He's going to be, they're going to be the same height, but he's going to have about a 3.5-inch reach advantage. Oliveira comes in as plus 145. Makhachev is minus 170. Since I entered these, we've seen the line move. Makhachev definitely closer to minus 200 now on DraftKings. So that's the difference of, a morning to night, entering of these lines here. So, and then the over 2.5. It used to be over 1.5 for this fight, but now over 2.5 plus 130, under 2.5 minus 160. And let's just say, I think there's two different ways this fight can play out. Pretty simply, I think Oliveira either is going to be able to find his distance, close it, hurt Makhachev. And if Makhachev is shooting without his full instincts or wits about him, I could see a submission or a knockout potential for Oliveira, especially on the earlier side. I wouldn't count him out at any point, but as this fight gets going on and where I keep on leaning back to, I could just see Makhachev making this an ugly grind fest. I know Oliveira is going to be tough to control, tough to hold down, but with a guy like Makhachev, I just, I tend to lean to the side, finally, as Guru's pulling me. So he's probably proud over there that he's done his work. But I'm feeling like Makhachev should just be able to carry this fight a little bit deeper than Oliveira's used to be. I'll put it that way. So, Guru, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think as I've come back and forth on this fight, right? Because if Charles Oliveira didn't win you over before at some point throughout his career, his last performance against Justin Gaethje had to have won you over. It was missing weight by half a pound, right? The commission basically screwing him over. He made the adjustments in that fight, won it handedly, gets rocked, faces the adversity continually. We all love to see it. He was super emotional with Dana White afterwards. Really an incredible moment. Islam has showed himself to be just a different beast. That you've seen the stat comparisons. They show the Khabib right up into the title shot, Islam right into the title shot. It's been up there on Twitter, right? The stats are so similar. His dominance, he just hasn't been able to show it against the right competition, right? That's been the big knock. Charles Oliveira has beaten some of the best in the world right now, and Islam has yet to necessarily face that. He was supposed to fight Beneil Dariush, right? That was going to be an exciting bout. We didn't get to see that because Beneil breaks his ankle. We'll get back to that later. I really think that, especially just with the narrative, right? Because this is also a betting show. The narrative being on Charles, you see it. Everybody is on him now. The line has continued to crash. When have you ever seen Islam minus 170? You haven't, or minus 190, even now. You really haven't. And I think after he beats Charles in this fight, you're not going to see that line ever again. And who wouldn't love to see Charles pull out a submission, right? But if you look back, he doesn't get as many submissions from bottom, right? He likes to get them from the back. So he's going to have to do that to Islam. And I've just seen time and time again, if I take my fan brain out, right, if I try to really be as analytic as possible, wrestling has beaten jiu-jitsu more times than not, right? Other than like the Damian Maia, like random, like outlier, like generally speaking, wrestling has been the dominant MMA. Dominant mixed martial art. So I'm going with Islam, and I really like the over 1.5 because the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Islam. If there's a finish in the first round, my thought is that it's probably Charles. But I like. By the way, this is my last thing. If Charles gets the finish, I think you play Charles by knockout. I don't necessarily think he gets the submission. I think it would be a knockout. But without further ado, we got to hear from Mr. Aaron Bronsteter.
Yeah, it's so funny because I said the same thing on my show earlier today, where if you like Islam here, you're never going to see this kind of number again. Like if he beats Charles, you're going to see minus 250 and beyond for essentially the rest of his career, because I don't think he's going to have a very long career. I think he'll probably follow in the footsteps of Khabib, retire 35, 36 at the top of the game. Because this, to me, the funny thing is, I think that Charles is the worst matchup for Islam in the division, but that Islam is the worst matchup for Charles in the division. It's it's an interesting dichotomy there. But if you were going to take Charles, I could say the same thing for O'Malley. Like the boat has left the pier. I mean, for a month, Islam was minus 400, and you could have gotten Charles in the plus 330 range, plus something along those lines if you look at the historical odds. Now I feel like any value on Charles Oliveira has been extracted. I think that right now, it's hard to find. I think the value side is Islam. Like, I think if you think Islam is going to win, you should absolutely take him, even at this price, even straight. But I think that this is a very volatile fight, and these are the kind of fights that I like to avoid for that reason. Because would you be shocked if I told you that Islam pummeled Charles for 3 rounds and got him out of there with a submission? If I told you that Charles landed a front kick up the middle, got into the clinch, kneed Islam Makhachev, he went down and then he grabbed the neck. No, I think that this fight there's so many different ways that this fight can play out. That's why I'm kind of avoiding round props. I don't really know what to look at. Like, I mean, if you want to get something, you can get fight ends in round 3 at plus 900. Like, I think that's probably the region where the fight will end. But the one thing that I landed on for this fight on FanDuel, you can do fight ends in submission, and it's minus 130. And the reason why I like that one is because I think that Charles, you mentioned that he could win by KO, which is very possible. But what we've noticed with Charles lately is when he lands those strikes, his grappling kicks right in. Like, he knows that his opponent is hurt. That allows him to get the advantageous position and lock in a choke, and nobody can get out of those chokes. Like, if he locks you in one of those chokes, you're pretty much donezo. And on the flip side of that, even though Charles has phenomenal grappling, his defensive grappling isn't fantastic. We've seen him against the likes of Paul Felder, who was able to neutralize his grappling and kind of out-grapple him en route to landing ground and pound. Islam is extremely creative with his offensive grappling as well. Yeah. He's able to find really good positions, arm bars, an array of different submission holds that he's able to lock on as well. And I think that he's going to be dangerous in that realm. So if you were to ask me how this fight ends, forget the side. I think the most likely path to victory for both these guys is by submission. So if you can then you don't even need to pick a horse. You just wait and you hope that one of these guys locks something in. And I think that at the end of the day, one of them will. Fight ends by submission at minus 130 is the way that I'm approaching this one.
Okay. Wow. I really like that approach. See, my thing is I think I'm going to start playing a dangerous game here with my bets on this fight, because I'm so torn on picking a side just because I love Charles, and that's making me a little biased, I think.
I'm the same way. Charles is my favorite. For years, if you would have asked me 4 years ago my favorite fighter to watch, I would have said Charles Oliveira. Like, no word of lie.
Wow.
So it's hard for me to separate that, but at the same time, like, I think the value side is Islam at this point in time, and I hate to say it, but I just think that's the way it is.
I agree, and Guru kind of beat that into my head, because he's like, dude, like, when are we, like, if Islam wins this fight, when are we ever seeing this type of price again on Islam? And it's never going to happen. Realistically, even until he loses, we're still going to be seeing minus 400, minus 500. And that's kind of the Khabib story as well. I mean, when we saw him in that fight against Conor, all that. And then ever after that, it's completely different. So maybe this is like, Islam's like stepping stone to really prove himself to everybody here. But at the end of the day, I think over 1.5, it might be a little juiced a little bit to this
and
point.
And you're going to be biting your nails.
Yeah, but I think you're safe on that, but not the under 2.5, over 2.5. I don't know. I don't trust this fight in the round 3 territory, but I think at least Charles's jiu-jitsu will be good enough to survive Islam's wrestling and finishing ability early. And I think Islam is defensively capable enough on the feet and on the mat to be able to survive early, potentially. But once again, I think if Charles is going to win, I would expect it earlier than later. So really, I'm playing this over 1.5. I really should be parlaying it, making it a Chronic Combat special, and doing Islam Makhachev and over 1.5 on DraftKings. As I pull up that line, so that we can kind of close that off, Guru, Aaron, did you guys have any final thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people are going to underestimate or going to figure out very quickly is, sure, Charles Oliveira's striking has gotten so much better, and it may be that much better than Islam Makhachev's. But what you've seen from these Dagestani fighters is something that I'm going to bring up about. Shout out to our interview with Nate Maness. The thing he was most surprised about from Tajir was his distance management. When he tried to hit him, he wasn't there. And I think that Islam Makhachev is going to give that exact problem to Charles Oliveira. And that's where people are going to maybe possibly be missing this fight. And that's why I do think that Islam is the rightful favorite, even though that line is sliding the wrong direction. So my play is similar to all of ours. I like Islam round 1, 2, or 3 on FanDuel plus 170.
Okay. All right.
I could certainly see that. Yeah. Another parlay leg I'm using is fight doesn't go at -430. Like, I mean,
Nice. You might
I
as
think
well,
that
right?
I think there are a lot of really good round props on this entire card that you can look at. There's one that I really love actually that we can talk about a little bit later on.
You know, now that you mention it, I also really like as a parlay piece, fight to not start round 4 at -190. We are not. I do not believe we're going to see championship round.
I would agree with that.
So I actually like that as well.
Islam and over 1.5 just to close it off on my thoughts, plus 130. So if you're feeling a little saucy and you want to play the over side of things to be, contrary, or as we like to say, fade the quote unquote narrative, that'll be the interesting way I might look at playing this fight. But I mean, you got to check us out on our Bet MMA if you want to know what the final play is going to be, because at this point, I mean, I do want to see their face off, everything like that. But it seems like we're like circling the drain here, and we're going to find something. But I think it's safe to move on to this next fight. And oh boy, I mean, talk about anticipation. We got another title fight. We got Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. I mean, man, Aljamain just straight up going that this dude is on roids. He's still on roids, and he never stopped using them route. And I appreciate that he's just pulling off the cloak and going straight for it. But from a actual, tail of the tape here, aside from Aljo's, what he's talking about, we got Sterling is coming in 1-inch height advantage, 4-inch reach advantage, 1-inch leg reach. But similarly, in Dillashaw's last fight, I think he faced a lot of those same disadvantages against Corey Sandhagen. Aljamain Sterling -175, TJ Dillashaw +150. We're seeing, as compared to where we had an over 2.5 for a 5-round fight in our main event, we have an over 4.5 at -205 here, and an under 4.5 at +165. It's making sense. I think the lines are looking appropriate, at least in my book here. But at the end of the day, I think me and Guru are doing a little sniffing around because might be hearing a little something off in the distance. If you can tell me what you're hearing, I don't know. Is there a dog barking somewhere? Because I think we might be getting a pretty favorable price on TJ Dillashaw, and me and Guru agreed on a lot of things here. So, Guru, why don't you continue our story, my friend?
Well, I would first off to say that Aljamain Sterling is probably not necessarily the rightful champ, right? I felt like if I was one of those 3 judges, right?
Oh no,
I would not have been. And listen, was I holding a Peter Yan ticket? Yes, I was. Okay, so am I biased? Sure, that's fine. I went back these months later. I watched it. I really did. I tried to be as absolutely unbiased as possible. Peter wins round 1. He does. So he wins the fight. He's our champ. He should be fighting TJ. That's the fight. This fight is interesting. It's a good one. I don't think I'm letting my detest for the moment get in the way of handicapping the fight, because what I've seen from TJ is over the course of his career is good, very good takedown defense, and the willingness, as you saw against Corey Sandhagen, to use his own wrestling, his own grappling. And what you've also seen in reverse from Aljamain Sterling, if you really watch back those fights, right? The narrative of those fights is Aljamain's dominant round 2 and 3. Great. Fight went the distance, you remember. He gets beat the brakes off of for 4 and 5. Does not look so great. Right? Gets taken down again, right? And if you remember the first fight, again, narrative, he's getting kneed, he's crying, he's got the bell, he throws. That's narrative. Remember how the fight goes? He's going for takedowns and getting tripped left and right. Jan's the one getting him on the ground. Why wouldn't TJ be able to do the same? Aljamain's shown himself way too willing to be laying on the ground. And I also think after a couple rounds, maybe he's down. I don't know if that like will is there, where I know TJ, this is all he wants more than anything in the world. So I know that he's a complete, not only is he the dog on the betting odds, but he's a dog. Like did you see that Corey Sandhagen fight? He's a dog. Knee torn off the bone, eyebrow ripped off his face. Still coming, still grinding you out. So I'm putting my money right on him. I won it with Corey Sandhagen, so I'm free rolling. I mean, I run it on him against Corey Sandhagen, so I'm free rolling. So let's go with TJ here. I do like it going the distance, but whatever. I like TJ. Let's roll. Aaron, what do we got? I'm very excited to hear your take.
I'm kind of with you. I think it's a dogger pass. And I mean, let's explain why. And another thing that I want to point out is if you think Petrosyan won that fight against Aljamain Sterling for the very same reason, I think that Corey Sandhagen won that fight against TJ Dillashaw. But this isn't MMA math hour. This is matchups. That's what we look at here is the matchups, the X's and O's. And coming back off of that suspension, the litmus test was, is that same TJ Dillashaw in there? The one that was the champion, the one that was dominating the bantamweight division. And he proved that he was. Because like you said, he tore his knee up in the first round, fought through it, and whether you agree with the judge's decision or not, close competitive fight, was in Corey Sandhagen's face the whole time. I thought that Sandhagen landed more damage, but very close fight. Like, it's not a
Came
robbery.
down to the 5th round,
it's just
for
an
sure.
opinion. Not a robbery. Just an opinion.
Yeah.
So let's keep that straight. Like, I'm not going to cry robbery, especially for either of those fights. Those were super close fights. So when you look at it from an X and O standpoint, is Aljamain Sterling going to be able to secure a takedown not once, not twice, but probably 3 times in order to win this fight? Because he's going to have to get him to the ground, and unless he can snap up a sub, which we've never really seen TJ Dillashaw in any danger of being submitted, then I don't think he's going to beat him on the feet. Like, I think that TJ Dillashaw's striking is up there with Dominic Cruz's. People might think I'm crazy, but in terms of like the best strikers in bantamweight history, TJ Dillashaw is fantastic with his angles, has great boxing, great footwork, gets in and out quickly, doesn't get hit very often. I think that if this TJ Dillashaw, after, again, 1 fight in 3 years, still has a little bit of TJ Dillashaw left in him, this is not a great matchup for Aljamain Sterling. That being said, I didn't really pull the trigger on this one. I'm just explaining why I think it's a dogger pass. I do think, though, that fight goes to a decision is probably very live in this one. Again, as a parlay piece, I think this fight goes to a decision almost every time if you were to do a simulation of this fight 100 times, I think it goes to a decision like 80% of the time. So that's the side that I'm looking at here. But I'm certainly aligned with you saying that this is a dogger pass.
Do you mind me asking what has you not pulling the trigger yet, sir?
I just don't know, to be honest. Like, maybe I'm waiting for more value. I don't really have a good answer for you, but
I appreciate that.
I think that, I mean, Aljamain's a really good fighter, right? Like, Aljamain rose to the occasion against Petrosyan. If Aljamain Sterling is able to get Dillashaw down and able to control him, he can win this fight. Aljamain Sterling's striking has gotten better too. Like, he's not going to be a fish out of water on the feet, but I just think that Dillashaw has a lot of advantages in this fight. I think he's got more ways to win this fight. And if you're the underdog and you're in that situation, I think the only thing that might be scaring me off is that he's 36, that he's fought once in 3 years. Like, that's probably, it's just intangibles. And there's nothing really to point at that's meaningful for me to suggest that. It's just, that's where I think my hesitation comes in. And I'm trying to approach these fights more like Islam Makhachev and be risk averse and try to find the path of least resistance as opposed to being like Charles and just making it rain. So I'm not too sure yet. I might end up with a bet on TJ Dillashaw by the time the fight goes off, depending on how my bets that night are doing. Like, it might come down to, like, if things are going well, I might ride the wave.
We actually say that in the time all the show. Where sometimes if you want to, just throw a little flyer out there, you reach under grandma's couch cushion, she's not going to notice that quarter hanging out under there. And and otherwise exactly, we talk about that too. If you're having a good night, why not throw a little extra flyer out there? But
grandma won't mind.
No, exactly.
She's not even gonna know.
She's not even gonna notice. But as we continue along this incredible card, right? Unless you had something else to add.
No, I think I mean, you'll see Dillashaw. We just got to decide on the units and make sure the weigh-in looks good. But I think we can leave it at that. But before we move on to our next fight, very important for all of our new people here in the show. Please like and subscribe. And retweet, throw some love on the socials, because that's the best way you can help us keep growing. And the best guests, best bets, always free picks. So that's the biggest deal here. So without further ado, we move on to our next fight. And man, the hits keep coming. Talking about the champion. Do they have a name? Was it especially the way Guru was going last fight?
My rightful champ.
There we go. We got Petrosyan -265 and O'Malley +225. And we got the over 2.5 -205, under 2.5 +165. You'll also see that O'Malley's going to come in with some measurable advantages like he normally does. 4-inch height, 5-inch reach, 2-inch leg reach. So, I mean, it definitely, it's definitely some advantages here on paper. For Sean O'Malley, you can definitely recognize that this guy is, he's going to be towering over Petrosyan at the face-offs too. So before we get too obsessed with, just the measurables on paper, I think it's also fair to talk about what we've seen from each guy, kind of in their history. And I think it's important to mention that I've seen Petrosyan, take some damage and kind of, be put in bad positions. Aljamain Sterling, 2 consecutive backpacks. Certain people in certain places, we've seen them pack up their bags and go home. I know Petrosyan is not going to cry, call his mom, look for a ride home if Sean O'Malley puts him in a dark place to start. That I can just about guarantee unless his lights get put out. However, Sean O'Malley, the question is, if he turns into the nail at any point in this fight, rounds 1 through 3, can we expect him to bounce back mentally and become the same guy that he was that started round 1? Because to come out the gate here, this fight should be a lot closer technically on paper. And I think that's why we've seen it crash from like Petrosyan minus 350 to like a minus 265 and even crashing further now.
Yeah.
I'm curious because as you're going to see here, when does the comeback come back on Petrosyan? I don't think that O'Malley has a hole in the grappling. I think it comes in the gas tank when he persistently needs to be on the back foot, backpedaling. And Petrosyan is going to be on the front foot, putting on pressure. The question is, we all said Petrosyan starts first round slow, and that kind of seems to be the trend. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean the dude is like Tyron Woodley out there. I mean, he's still going to be landing body kicks. He's going to be throwing punches on counters. It's just he usually processes a little bit more in the early goings. As it stands, if O'Malley ends up closing any sort of distance here and not, keeping his range, Yana's going to be looking for some of those trips and everything he was landing on Aljo. The problem is, unless O'Malley closes distance, it's like, how do you expect to get to the fight to the mat? So if it's on the feet and O'Malley, keeps his composure, stays clean the whole fight, yeah, the fight probably should be lined a little bit closer. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's MMA. It's going to turn ugly at some point. And that's where the questions really come in for O'Malley and Petrosyan. I mean, we're talking about the rifle champs here and stuff like that. It's like, when he lost to Magomedov, right? That was his one loss before.
Mm-hmm.
And then so he comes back and avenges his loss. You got to figure coming off of the Aljamain Sterling loss, and this guy's got to be putting in his fucking work in camp. And seeing him and Aljo like shake hands and see each other in Abu Dhabi, it's like you got to imagine like all this like him holding his hand up, and like, oh, the rifle champ. Like hopefully he actually put that work in camp this time to make sure he was fully prepared for this moment. Because in between rounds on the stool, I mean, you see Ray Longo and Aljo like shouting at him between rounds. Like you look at that effing guy on the stool is what Ray Longo is telling Aljo.
Yeah.
I mean, Guru, do you think O'Malley can withstand the test of the nail and the hammer? What do you see here?
I see a very interesting stylistic matchup because in this large cage, right, it's going to give Sean O'Malley a wide canvas to paint on. And if he's going to need to rely on his movement, and what you've seen from Petrosyan is his constant robotic forward pressure, even when he's not throwing, right? He could be ducking or parrying or whatever he's doing, but he's just always marching forward with smart pressure. That being said, he wasn't always closing off the angles, right? He was kind of he's just walking Aljo down. And it allowed Aljo to get inside at times. Obviously, Sean O'Malley won't be looking to get inside, but he'll be looking to dance around. He'll be looking to square off and move. He'll be switching stances, throwing a wide array of different things that Jan's not necessarily used to. Obviously, in Muay Thai, you see a ton of kicks. I just think at the end of the day that where the line was originally, yeah, I really did like the stab on O'Malley. But as we continue to get closer to fight day here, I find myself back on the rightful champ and trying to find the piece I like. And I do. I think the fight goes the distance. Unfortunately, that's not a sexy play at minus 192. Even Peter by decision at minus 105 isn't fantastic. I wonder where Sean's durability will be, right? How much punishment he'll be able to take, how long he'll be able to dance around the outside. And like you even said, like forget it. Let's say it doesn't even need to go to the mat. How about some dirty boxing? How about you're controlling him against the clinch, right? I think that's not necessarily an area, right, where Sean is at his best. I think he's actually a very good like submission grappler. I think that's a very underrated part of his game. I just don't
A
think it's
light bulb
necessarily
went off.
I just don't think he's gonna go there. What's your light bulb, friend?
So my last thought before we pass it along to our other buddy is is that O'Malley cuts a lot of weight to make 135, and Petr Yan loves working to the body with kicks and punches. So maybe we see O'Malley get hurt to the body before he gets hurt to the head, especially a shorter fighter, less distance to close working to the body than going up top. And O'Malley's never really shown chin issues, but I mean, we've seen, the nerve in his leg. We've seen his ankle kind of deal with kicking Sukumtath. Couldn't really handle it over the course of the whole fight. A thick head, I guess. But maybe to the body we see a little damage. But Guru, do you have any final? I think I stole some spotlight there?
Yeah, I think his body's so much thicker now, and he's become he started so young. He's at 27. I mean, he's a full-grown man. As he still grows into his body, still at 27, right? You're still growing. So I am very interested to see this fight. I think this is Sean O'Malley took a huge bite of the pie here. I think it's really a win-win situation for him, because even if he, like I predict, does kind of lose a decision, a 29-28 unanimous decision, like homie just went toe-to-toe with the champ and got to fight the number one guy. He'll only have top 10 opponents from here on out, you'll kind of say, as long as he doesn't get starched or anything. But please, without further ado, we have to turn it over to our guy, Aaron.
All right, so before we talk about the matchup itself, I just want to give you some food for thought on the market. If you look at where this opened, right now on FanDuel, Petr Yan is minus 250. This opened Petr Yan minus 250. And in seconds, it was bet up to minus 500. Who are the people that are betting the fights when the line opens? The people that know what they're doing, the opportunists, the ones that want to get as much value as they can. And who are the ones that move the lines towards the fight? The casual bettor. The one that says, oh, there's a fight night coming up. Who am I going to bet on? Oh, I'm going to bet on Sean O'Malley. I know who he has. He has funky hair. So right now, I think the value side is Petr Yan at minus 250. Listen, if the line moved that much from the opener, and it stayed at above minus 400, higher than minus 400 for Yan for 2 months. 2 months. It was minus 400 or above. The value from O'Malley's been extracted. It's the exact same thing I said for Makhachev versus Charles. Because I was also looking at O'Malley when it was like plus 375, plus 350. I was like, okay, like that's like some solid value. Because I think O'Malley's a really good fighter. I think that O'Malley is a really difficult fighter for anyone, especially like Petr Yan, who, like you guys talked about, downloads information. I call him Petr the computer because he's just downloading information, processing information. He in 5-round fights has been known to take a little bit of time to get a beat on his opponent. In 3-round fights, not so much. We have to remember, this is a 3-round fight. I expect Petr to come flying out of the gates compared to what we usually see from him in 5-round fights. I'm just not sure what the path to victory for Sean O'Malley is here. Can he keep Petr Yan at range for that long before Yan figures out a way to get in? You mentioned the body work. I think that's a big factor. The leg work is a massive factor because we've seen what happened when people chop away. We saw in the Sukumtath fight, and we saw in the Chito Vera fight what happened when people chopped away at Sean O'Malley's legs. Yes. And Sean O'Malley has not fought anybody close to elite competition that he's beaten. I'd call Chito Vera close to elite competition, but he lost that fight.
Not according to him.
Not according to him. Officially, he lost that fight.
Yes, he did.
Petr Yan is like, again, I'll talk about simulations. If you were to do simulations, 100 fights, Petr Yan versus TJ Dillashaw, Petr Yan wins 65 to 70% of the time, I would say, maybe even more. If you were to do Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, no disrespect to Sterling because I thought the Sterling did win that last fight. I think that Petr Yan wins that fight 60 to 65% of the time. He's the best bantamweight in the division. He's 29. He's entering his prime or is in his absolute prime. Doesn't have a lot of miles on him. Hasn't taken much damage in his career. I think O'Malley is in for a tough one. I really do. And I think that if you're going to parlay Petr Yan and try to get some value elsewhere, I think that's probably the way to go here. Like you said, Guru, I think that like the fight going to a decision is probably more likely. But that being said, we've seen Sean O'Malley have his body break down on him during fights. And that's the thing that would kind of scare me off of doing a fight goes the distance. But I think more often than not, this fight does go to a decision. And I don't really want to write Sean O'Malley off. Like I just think that right now the value on Yan is there. And I don't really see a great path for Sean O'Malley. And I also don't see a lot of information that would tell me that Sean O'Malley's ready for this challenge just yet. He could prove me wrong. He's talented enough to do it. So let's see how it goes. But I don't really have a play on this one at all.
How do you like Petrosyan round 3 or decision minus 155? Shave a little bit of that. It's not actually, minus 250. It's really not that big a difference.
It's not that big a difference. And again, like if O'Malley's legs come out from under him in the first or second, would you be shocked? I mean, who knows? No. It's a volatile fight. Also, it's like it could end in a variety of ways, and that's why I'm not super confident pulling the trigger on decision. I think that's the most likely way it ends, but at minus 200, I think you'd be sweating for a lot of that fight.
Yeah, you're right. I actually don't. You're right. I like Petrosyan straight up.
Like, what's the Jan knockout prop? Jan by KO is plus 390 on FanDuel. It's plus 300 and plus 250 everywhere else.
Right.
If you have a FanDuel account, I mean, you might want to look at that. I think that's a possibility at plus 390. I mean, this is some solid value there, but again, not enough that I don't know. I just don't. I don't have a great read on this fight. So
that might be
a
grandma's couch cushion
is the right side.
That might be a grandma's couch cushion play, like you're saying right there with Jan by KO plus 390.
Right. Yeah. See how the
That's it. I've been saving this, Guru, because Justin had to bring this up before. Guru, if you keep taking from grandma every fight card, she's got to know by now, right? Is it just because she's your grandma and she's like, oh, Guru is fine. He's just taking a couple coins. She's got to know by now, right?
No, you don't understand. She goes out on laundry day. She's got all that big nickel sack of change there. She sits down, she falls asleep, and half of them fall out. She takes it out. I'm not taking anything. You know what I'm saying? They're right there in the couch cushions.
Right. So, okay. Well, ultimately, I was thinking, you called me crazy here, but food for thought. I was going to say that Aaron beautifully put Petrosyan by knockout if you want to look for some value. Other thing, if you want to take our main event in this one, be like a little, Petrosyan and Islam Makhachev plus 110. I might be down for like a unit on that, Guru. I don't know about you.
That's dicey.
It's dicey,
you might be sweating that one, but it could happen.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about, there was value on Makhachev based on where the line moved. There was value on Jan based on where the line opened, where it moved to. I'm not saying it's a best bet of the night type of deal, but if we're throwing 3 units here, 2 units there, 4 point whatever units there, it's like if we want to make sure we have some money lines on some of these bigger fights, just as we discuss stuff as things come down to the wire, that might be something I want to push for. We'll see.
Absolutely. And just so you know, as we move on to this next fight, I want everybody to know there is no actual grandma's couch cushion. I'm not actually robbing my grandma.
Yeah. Give a full explanation, Guru.
At least what explanation is there? My don't live in the same state as my grandparents. That's the explanation. It's just more of a figure of speech, like just kind of the idea, like the loose change that you're not really thinking about.
There you go.
Coffee money, lunch money. Not lunch money because we got to eat, but like as shout out to our boy Mushroom, like. The lunch, the extra lunch money. Like if you're balling for lunch.
You'll find out we're all very expensive one-kind quarters and coins. Yeah, that's right.
It's my record. Like what we have behind here, my records.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
And I keep saying quarters. What are the change called in Canada? It's not pennies.
Yeah, quarters. Yeah. We have quarters.
Okay. That's so.
We just don't have as much paper money as you guys. We've got loonies and toonies.
Yeah. Okay. I know it's the loonies.
Got it. I'm uncultured. I didn't know that.
Yeah, have you
learned something new every day?
And we don't have pennies. Pennies have been taken out of circulation for
very smart. We should do that too.
We've been waiting for that. Yeah, I don't even take the pennies. I just leave them at the cash register. Anyway, or I slip them back into grandma's couch cushion and I let them add up.
Full circle. So we're talking about pennies. Now we got Benny Dariush, Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. Talk about a crazy matchup we got here. I mean, Beneil Dariush. He is going to be plus 160 to Gamrot's minus 190. The over 2.5 at minus 185, under 2.5 at plus 150. Gamrot going to be 2 years younger, but they size up. I mean, they're same height, half-inch difference in reach, half-inch difference in leg reach. Like, really not much going on as far as tail of the tape. Like, when these guys face off, as long as I see them being, like, basically the same size next to each other, I'm cool with, like, okay, cool. I got that part figured out. Now, what I'm really thinking about is Beneil Dariush's ankle fully healed from when he pulled out of that Makhachev deal? You got to figure, it's been a solid amount of time since Makhachev's last fight. And it happened during their camp, and he pulled out a solid amount before. But it's like Dariush, I really want to see, like, from a cardio perspective, also from a building your game perspective. Because if you've just been rehabbing, how much have you been rolling on the mat? How much have you been, working on that Muay Thai? I love the camp he's at. I think his kickboxing is great. I know that he's a very high-level black belt, but also if Drakkar Klose, the decision king, has you on wobbly legs in round 2, body triangle or not for all of round 1, I'm a little sketched out no matter how fantastical your finish was. Not that I'm necessarily worried that Gamrot's going to knock him out per se, but with the under and the fight doesn't go the distance being the plus money here, it makes you kind of think a little bit. A guy coming off injury, Gamrot just went the distance, 5 rounds with Arman Tsarukyan. And how many takedowns did he shoot? I lost count. What does it say, 22 on the official stats or something? He's attempted 51 in 5 career fights, though. And I know the majority came in that last one. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess overall my point is I think Gamrot is the much more active fighter recently. Gamrot should match up well physically with Benny, and I think he's got the skills no matter where. I mean, this is a high-level person, even before he got signed to the UFC. This was someone being talked about in KSW, correct? He was a two-weight champion, right?
45, 55, yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're talking about you have a high pedigree, and you come in, and your first fight is Guram Katataladze, who took it on like 5 days' notice because someone else drops out, or like a couple weeks' notice. Like, yeah, it's tough to get a read on a crazy striker and someone that can scramble. Like, someone that has the flexibility like Guram Katataladze, you can't really study for. So I understand. And it was a little bit, even Guram said, Gamrot beat me. So with all those things put together, Gamrot minus 190, I'm finding that there's still some meat on the bone. Agreed. I just don't know if it's inside or outside the distance.
Shockingly, by the way, it was Magomed Mustafayev who was supposed to fight him. So he was supposed to fight on this card as well. Did not quite make it. Not to his fault this time around anyway. I think you bring up some really, really interesting points. And the question marks on Beneil Dariush are eventually the same ones that you keep you off of him. He hasn't, and then you also bring up eventually just his level of competition, right? Is smothering Tony Ferguson impressive anymore? Is the Diego Ferreira split decision, a fight that it kind of slips out of his hands a little bit. And then again, going to war with Scott Holtzman, spinning back fist, war with Drakkar Klose. These are not things that and then again, all this time off, not things that I like to see. Arman Tsarukyan fight. That dude is the real deal. You've seen how well that win stands up against his loss, Islam Makhachev's win over him, how well that stands up for him on his record. And then you're going to see the same thing for Gamrot here as he gets a premier fight on the premier pay-per-view because he beat Arman. Whether I think so or not, and whether my wallet thinks so or not, right? The judges thought so. And I just think at the end of the day, his overall pace and pressure is going to be something that Beneil hasn't seen. Beneil's used to being the wrestler, the guy on top. You see it right there in our beautiful stats that TB works so hard on. 42% control time for Beneil Dariush with only an 8% opponent control rate. So it is very impressive. And the one problem you do see with Gamrot, right? What do they say about somebody shooting for 20 takedowns? What does that mean? That they're not holding them down the whole time. However, Beneil's cardio could be, again, I don't know. He's always seemed like, I don't know whether it's his body. He's always got that like chiseled chest, but he's got the kind of like love him. I'm not trying to like ogle this guy's body. You know what I'm saying? I wonder about the dude's cardio. I do. I wonder if he's gonna be the wrestling minute winner towards the end of the fight. So for that reason, and I think Gamrot's the rightful favorite, and I like him on this side of minus 200 because you see on FanDuel he's minus 210. So without further ado, Aaron, what do you got for us, buddy?
Well, it's rare that I see a line where my eyes pop out of my head and I say, I just absolutely have to bet this. Beneil Dariush by submission is plus 1,000 on FanDuel. Like, whether or not you think he's going to win this fight, this is a jiu-jitsu world champion. Like, and you got a guy who just shot 22 takedowns against his opponent. If he's shooting takedowns against Beneil Dariush, like, that's opportunity city. Plus 1,000. Like, you have to take a shot on that. Like, if you're going to throw a dart on anything on this card, to get that at 10-1 for a guy who's as good on the ground as Beneil Dariush is, you got to take that. Now, to look at the matchup itself, the thing that I worry about this is market overcorrection, because we haven't seen Beneil Dariush in action for a while. The last time we did, he was dominant over Tony Ferguson, but it was a long time ago, and Tony Ferguson's fallen off since then. Maybe he had fallen off already by then. But that last fight against Tsarukyan, I was shocked that Tsarukyan didn't get the nod there. Like, I thought Tsarukyan won that fight.
Yeah.
And we had Gamrot as a plus 250 underdog in that fight, and now he's a minus 210 favorite against Beneil Dariush. Like, if you match Dariush up against Tsarukyan, that's probably a closely lined fight. Like, I think that Beneil Dariush would have a lot of advantages in that fight. I think this is a dog or pass. I'm just going to pass overall, but I am taking that plus 1,000 for Dariush.
Grandma's couch. Say it, Aaron. Say it for me. Say you're going to Grandma's couch cushion for that plus 1,000.
No, I've already that's already come out of the wallet. Like that one. As
yes.
As soon as I saw that, like that was in. Because
see,
that,
when
like,
you win, you can put it back. See, that's my
plus
guy right there.
1,000
I
for
love
a
that.
guy who's a jiu-jitsu world champion against anybody, except for maybe like Islam or Charles. Maybe I'd make it, but even against Charles, I'd probably take plus 1,000 on Dariush by submission. But I mean, you have to take that, don't you?
You know
at 10 to 1.
Oh my god, you have me really thinking, because like we said on the show, and you're obviously a perfect member for it, by the way. Fade the narrative. What is the narrative? The narrative in this fight is that Beneil's old, washed up, not going to be as good. How's he going to recover? Maybe that's the public narrative here, and maybe the way to fade it is that Beneil Dariush is the thorn in the UFC side that won't go away, and he makes the fight that they don't want to make, and or he forces their hand by beating this guy.
And
here.
maybe he's not beating better competition because he's not facing better competition,
right?
Like, he's looked really good for the last little while. And like you said, he was on wobbly legs against Drakkar Klose, which is not a great look, since Drakkar Klose often can't finish a sandwich. No disrespect to the guy, but usually he wins by decision. Although lately he's definitely shown a lot more variety in his game and has had more finishing instincts. So I do want to give him credit for that. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that Dariush is probably the side here if you're looking for value. And I wouldn't take Gamrot at this price. I think it's too high. And I do like that prop.
And you know what? I think you're touching on something deep in my soul, and it's that I lost the money on Arman against him, and now maybe I'm like deep in my subconscious, right? I'm trying to like win it back by betting on him, and maybe it's more of a dog or pass spot. So I'm gonna have to do some meditation on this, and I'm gonna come back to the space with my inevitable pick on who I end up on. But you've really made me think about some things here, Aaron.
Hey, never afraid to get the conversation flowing. We're never afraid to change our pick. You know what I mean? That's it. We get more information. That's the beautiful part. So, hey, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. Also, if you're in the chat and you're watching, make sure to leave a little comment. We'll bring up what you guys are thinking. Let us know your best bet. Let us know if you got any questions. I mean, it's not every day that we get to have someone awesome like Aaron on. So, if you guys had any questions about how he got into everything, don't be afraid in the chat. We love to hear from you guys. As we get on to our next fight here, we got Kalen Chookagian.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. What was that? Oh, no, the Kias. They've already started.
Yeah.
We'll get a lot of that, because we're also got Manon Fiorot on the other side. And, oh, man, she's going to be doing the same thing, too. So this will be pretty fun from an audio standpoint, I suppose. But, yeah, I mean, we just look at the tape here. Chookagian, 2-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage. I mean, it's rinse, wash, repeat for Chookagian as far as having the physical advantages. Nothing new there, but for Manon Fiorot, she is normally the person getting those advantages. So I'm interested to see how she does giving them up this time. However, we got minus 205 Fiorot and plus 175 Chookagian. Over 2.5 minus 350. This is a Chookagian fight after all. And under 2.5 plus 270. Guru, what you thinking, man?
Listen, I think, at the risk of sounding like a broken record on this card, I think it's dog or pass for me. I'm not sure that there's value on Fiorot here. They're basically carbon copies of each other, except we're going to talk about Manon Fiorot being the younger fighter, yet she's just younger to us. 32 to 33. She's not necessarily this young prospect that she seems to be touted up as. And I think her walk here has just been kind of quick. Right? Victoria Leonardo, somebody who's fringe UFC, Tabitha Ricci, wonderful prospect, but kind of limited in terms of her striking. Certainly in terms of the size, right? I believe she took that fight up a weight class with Manon Fiorot to get into the UFC.
Short notice.
Right. So that's not necessarily, that's more her step into the UFC as opposed to actually a winnable fight for her. Mayra Bueno Silva, who's, kind of I think they gave her a fight with somebody that was not going to grapple with her at all. Somebody that was going to not be afraid to stand and bang, which is what Bueno Silva loves to do. And she came forward like a zombie and, gave Manon Fiorot a walking punching bag to continue to hit. And then Jennifer Maia, who we've seen now towards the tail end of her career, not necessarily do too well in the right. She's somebody that's a good grappler that doesn't use her grappling. It's kind of questionable. So, she gives another somebody that's willing to strike with Fiorot. Obviously, you see Caitlin as somebody willing to strike, but the size advantage, the reach advantage, her variety of her striking attacks, and let's not forget her well-versed and completely disrespected and often forgot about wrestling and ground game, because she's always with Longo Sarah Weidman and BJ, not Weidman, but Longo Sarah in Long Island. But Weidman obviously trains there. So I like my girl Caitlin to get this done. And of course, if you're playing her at dog odds, which is already attractive at plus 175, you got to probably take her the way that she wins the fight always, which is by decision. 11 UFC fights, right? 15 UFC fights, and aren't they all decisions?
All but one. She has
all but one.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I like her to win by decision again. Why not at plus 240? I think that's exciting. Aaron.
Yeah, that's my slam dunk of the card. Plus 250 Chookagian by decision is that's the price at FanDuel. I just don't see how you can't take this. She wins all her fights, like you said, by decision. She's got the most in women's MMA history, 11 decision wins. This is going to be a close fight, and I think you brought up a really good point, Tyler, that Fiorot is used to fighting kind of more compact, wild strikers. Tabatha Ricci's 5'1", so let's I mean, that one we can almost throw away. Victoria Leonardo is like you said, on the cusp of being on the UFC roster. Mayra Bueno Silva, I think, was a really good stylistic matchup for Manon. She was unable to get Manon to the ground, which is where I think Bueno Silva would have had some advantages. And against Jennifer Maia, I think Maya's kind of, again, like a stocky kind of power striker, and Manon Fiorot just was able to box circles around her. But if you're looking at kickboxing, Caitlin Chookagian's a really good kickboxer. That's her bread and butter. And like you said, if it gets into any sort of wrestling exchanges or grappling exchanges, that's advantage Caitlin Chookagian as well. So I think this is going to be a really close fight. I think that this could be a decision that Fiorot wins. But again, if you've got a close fight and you've got Chookagian, who's always able to find ways to kind of outpoint and outpace her opponents, I think at plus 250 is just an absolute slam dunk that you have to take that. It's just way too much value to leave on the table. So when I did my TSN Edge picks this week, that was one of them, along with some of the other ones that we pointed out earlier. But that was the one that stood out to me right away as a big one was Caitlin Chookagian by decision.
Absolute value there. And I also like, since you're mentioning, Aaron, that you think it's going to be a close fight, and we are all pretty sure it's going to go to the decision. Fight to be a split or majority decision plus 350.
Always love those.
Yeah.
And usually the basement on those is plus 400. So right, I think they know that this is going to be a really close fight. I think Manon Fiorot is really good. Yeah, but I mean, Caitlin Chookagian has been the gatekeeper to take out everybody who's really good. That's her job.
Yeah.
So, you're going to go to your job. That's your job. So we'll see how that plays out.
Very true. Yeah, I really, really, again, even this fight, super exciting because of what it means, right? How important these fights are very important. Like last week's card, again, very good card, exciting card. I love any live fights, but didn't necessarily have as much what I like to call like UFC relevancy. This card is chock full of that, and I'm really, really excited for all of these.
100%.
Yeah.
As we keep cooking, man, we're getting right along here.
Yeah,
right? We got one more for the main card.
Yeah. So
no, that was it. This is the prelim. Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Right, that's how stacked this card is. This could and probably should be the headliner 5-round fight of some sort of fight night.
Right.
But better than the last main event. The last two.
This should have been done at the Wells Fargo Center. Like this would have been a sick card. But that was a sick fight there. Oh my goodness. But hey, listen, they're treating Abu Dhabi and they're treating us, so no complaints. We get it sooner, and I'll take it right now. So
UFC is allergic to Philadelphia. They never go there. It's not once in 9 years.
That's so true. Yeah. Recently, though, it was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there was one recently, and then one was the last time before that.
I don't know. That's a
true.
good point.
That is very true.
Damn.
Well, yeah, I mean, so here we go. I mean, now we're off the main card. You don't, we're going to be enjoying this fight, warming up for the 2 p.m. EST pay-per-view. So this will be kicking us off as we're finishing our lunch here and getting ready to start the main card. We got Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. Plus 120 for Muhammad, Brady at minus 140. Got the over 2.5 minus 270. It seems pretty appropriate. And the under 2.5 at plus 215. So yeah, fight goes the distance. Not sure that's a play that I'm like, oh yeah, make that your best bet. It's pretty juice. Like, yeah, it's gonna happen, I would imagine. So if you need a parlay piece, but aside from that, I mean, these guys match up. I mean, Muhammad got a 1-inch height advantage. He's also 5 years older. Other than that, dead even. So curious, you got to figure Brady might be a little bit thicker, but Muhammad, I wouldn't underrate the strength that this guy has. Nothing gets the people hyped up to buy an afternoon pay-per-view quite like a Belal fight. Oh my goodness, Brad, thanks for joining the chat, man. I know I've been following you for a while. Thanks for hopping in. We appreciate you, and hey guys, get the chat popping. So anyways, what I'll get popping is Belal Muhammad plus 120. I think, Sean Brady, he is a guy that is able to kind of emit his dominance grappling on a lot of people, Michael Chiesa included. But I think Belal Muhammad is so strong and has such a good takedown defense, and he's a layered striker who mixes in his own level-changing approach. I think that Belal is going to make this the line is close, don't get me wrong, but I think plus 120, it's another one of those dogger pass situations. But I'm learning that if I'm even leaning the dog, I got to pull the trigger, throw them all in a round robin, and get it out there, because if you hit on like half of those, you're having a profitable day. That's the end of the story. So once again, if I see a talented fighter that I'm liking, especially, plus 120, Belal Muhammad, 5 rounds with Vicente Luque, whereas Sean Brady at the end of round 3 versus Michael Chiesa, man, we're sitting there going, oh boy, what if that one went longer? And Guru, I know you got some points on that one, so go ahead, my friend.
I got a very specific point. It's one specific word. Are you ready for it? That word is pace. Pace. Okay? The pace of this fight is going to be something Sean Brady has not seen before. Look at those striking stats. Again, my boy TB working really hard on those stats. Look at those colors, right? All those striking stats are green for Sean Brady, right? Except for a couple there. What does that say there? Oh, look at that. Pace at distance.
You want full screen real quick?
Belal Muhammad's actually throwing more strikes at distance. You believe that? And then you look at the pace in the takedowns, right? Look at that. Oh my goodness. Right? Oh, Brady lands 3.17 to Belal's 2.29. Sure, but then if you look at takedown attempts per 15, look at that. 6.53 for Belal to the 5.21 of Sean Brady. The pace of Muhammad is going to cripple Sean Brady. And it's going to, right? Brady might come out strong, win that first round, but there's going to be an adrenaline dump. And you have to also kind of remember, even though Belal is from Chicago, you got to figure this is kind of like a hometown fight for him. He's going to be feeling real good. I don't think there's any way you can get around to be playing Brady at favored odds here, especially after the Michael Chiesa performance, which, by the way, I don't even understand Michael Chiesa's game plan, if we could just be quite frank. He went for and landed his one takedown. One takedown. You're a wrestler, Michael Chiesa. You gave Sean Brady the opportunity to take you down instead. And that's what happened. But guess what? Brady was tired. And if it was a 5-round fight, Chiesa was going to keep smashing him. Maybe that said as somebody a little salty because I had money on Chiesa and I'm a big Chiesa fan. But hey, I do. I think that the Brady train, the Cesar Renzo Gracie Philly train is coming to a stop. And it's coming to a stop in Abu Dhabi. Belal Muhammad, hell, even by decision, why not? But Belal Muhammad plus money line. What do you got for us, Aaron?
This is a fight. Well, first off, you mentioned that this is like a home field advantage for Belal Muhammad. Important to note, he's actually been in Dubai for like the last 4 or 5 weeks training with Khabib and his team, and Khabib's going to be in his corner for this fight. So I mean, if you want more of a home advantage, there you go. But I think you can comfortably take the fight goes to a decision and put it in parlays. Like it's like minus 280. I think that's a pretty solid price for that. I don't really see a finish materializing in this one. And I agree with what both of you guys are saying. I think it's a total dog or pass. I think that you look at Belal Muhammad, 91% takedown defense in the UFC, not to mention just coming out of training with all these Dagestani wrestling-based fighters trying to take him down all day. I asked him what your UFC, I spoke to him today. I said, your UFC takedown percentage is 91%. What was your takedown percentage in camp with the Dagestani wrestler? He goes 21%. So, I mean, he's testing his wrestling on a day-to-day basis. And I, like you said also, Guru, that there's a reason they call you Guru. It's not because you're a member of Gangstar. The pace is really important here, because I think that the volume is going to be what really cripples Sean Brady in this fight. If he's unable to land takedowns, he's going for takedowns. I think that Belal Muhammad's going to put a pace on him. I think he's going to put more volume on him, and he's going to tire him out. And I think that Belal Muhammad wins the decision here. But on the flip side, these guys out of Philadelphia, Sean Brady's 29. He's entering his prime. These guys out of Philadelphia are getting really, really good. And that's where my hesitation lies with this fight, because you're seeing a lot of iron sharpens iron there. And I mean, again, Belal was just training with Khabib and his team. So, I mean, I can't say that it's not the same on the flip side, but these guys in Philadelphia are getting better and better and better. Sean Brady is showing a lot of improvements. I actually thought Chiesa won that fight. I'm in the vast minority, but if you're looking at criteria, I think you can make a case that Chiesa won that fight. Brady did nothing but control in that third round, and Chiesa was the only one landing anything. But I think personally, I think it's a dog or pass. I'm not pulling the trigger on Belal just yet. I do like the fight goes to a decision, though, and I am putting that in parlays alongside stuff like Charles and Islam doesn't go to a decision. Chookagian and Fiorot goes to a decision. I'm mixing and matching a lot of those decision properties. I think some of them are fairly clear as to the direction that they should go, and I say should because it's MMA.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is the thing. I like to think of handicapping MMA as the SATs, right? There's so many good answers. That's great, but you have to pick the best one, and that's where it comes. That's where this stuff is super difficult, and where we have the most fun. This sport is absolutely the most volatile and the most exciting, unlike the SATs. So, as we continue to move along, right, TB? Oh, listen. Give guys, if you haven't liked to subscribe already, as we beat your head over that mallet, like. Come on, guys, send it out. We really appreciate it.
It's starting to feel like a telethon with all of these breaks in between the matches.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm waiting for Jerry Lewis to come out and try to hit us with some comedy. Some really bad comedy, dated comedy.
That's it. Well, we try to take like the muted approach overall. Try not to like go too crazy. But at the same time, we're realizing, like as we do things the quote unquote right way here, you do have to do a little asking along the way here. So.
We understand like one championship where you're talking about how the belt's 38 pounds and this is the greatest. Oh my God. If people are watching the show, they've subscribed.
We're also $100 million in debt as well. So secretly,
no. See, it's funny.
Which has a hole in it.
We have. I see all the data, and it's like half the people that watch our show actually are non-subscribers. Oh, wow. So, just looking at it, it's like, hey, if you guys are already here, like, what's the harm? You guys are already here.
Hit the subscribe button. I'm with you guys. I'm
exactly.
Like, I'm so because plates on my head to try to get people to call people up on the phone.
Do you actually have some juggling balls? Could you actually bust those out?
I'm the wrong guy for that.
Or maybe Aaron's got some other special skills we could dig into. But I think the biggest one has been finding value for us on some of these plays. I mean, what an awesome guest, because now we got Mahmoud Muradov versus Caio Borralho. Man, we got such a clash of cultures. It seems like we got a lot of the Ovs versus a lot of the Brazilian guys like on this card. Are they all taking the same plane together? I guess they're all training, obviously a lot of them are in American camps too, but it was just interesting. A lot of matchups and a lot of guys that have fought each other recently too. Like Borralho is actually 2 of his previous opponents are on this card. So it made like tape a little bit easier for me as I'm like managing and, going through. So Muradov plus 165, Borralho, the line keeps dropping, open minus 280, now minus 195. Muradov over 2.5. This fight over 2.5 minus 115, under 2.5 minus 115. They don't know what's going to happen. Well, so anyways, the other interesting thing here is that we got a plus. Muradov on paper here says he's 6'2" to Borralho 6'1", but like Borralho still might even be taller than that 6'1" that I gave him, because they're saying 5'10" on paper, and it's just like that's just not true. But the reach looks dead even. It looks like Muradov should have leg reach. The question, like Borralho, we saw him eat a lot of leg kicks against Petrosyan. Does Muradov take the same approach? Can Muradov stuff takedowns over and over if Borralho goes that route? I'm interested, but Muradov looks a little bulked up. But I think Borralho, if he's able to get his game plan that we've seen, back taking approach, Muradov has loved to give up his back in the past. And the other thing is that Gerald Meerschaert beat him on the feet first. That's the other thing to note. Like, I first thought on like my memory that Gerald just like was diving for legs and ends up getting his back. Like, no, like Gerald landed a lot of straight lefts, a lot of body kicks, and he's coming forward with pressure and feinting level changes, and he's getting through with the overhands and the straights. So he hurts Muradov multiple times, and then he gets the submission. Early on, Muradov is actually kind of shucking off the desperation takedowns and having success and hurting Gerald. But Gerald more so, he was never fully gone, is what you kind of see in his eyes. Is he rolls to his back a bunch of times. It's like the Oliveira approach almost. Welcome to my guard, you know? But yeah, so I guess overall, Borralho seems safe to me on a money line play. I'll be looking for a parlay piece, which we'll be bringing to you a little later on down the card. So, Guru, what do you think here?
Yeah, unfortunately for some of the viewers, we're not a lot of dissent between us. After doing the tape, I did find myself on the Borralho side. I do think that the size is going to be closer than it seems to say on paper. Caio was huge when standing next to Petrosyan in his last fight, right? And Petrosyan's listed at like 6'2" or something, 6'1". So he's not exactly a small guy either. I'm very excited to see how this fight pans out. What you've seen from Muradov is decent takedown defense, but decent takedown defense to start. He sprawls and he does well to start. And then as he gets tired, he's not as sharp and will kind of topple over, right? And you also see against Gerald Meerschaert there, which may have sapped his cardio, which is something I am more interested to see. He did get kicked in the groin and poked in the eye. So, like,
Yes.
he got double fouled to start the fights off. Maybe that adrenaline dump, it was different from him. And then by the end of the first round, he is completely cooked, and then finished early second. So I am interested to see if he's made any sort of changes or adjustments. But that being said, Caio Borralho has been the more active fighter. He showed complete domination when he's been out there, and he shows a specific game plan that I think Muradov will be susceptible to. Caio's no slouch on the feet, should be able to stand there and survive. He's certainly a savage, to say the least. Isn't that what he has tattooed on his neck? Like, dude is a savage. And I think he's going to come out there and probably win a decision, if not, maybe get even a late finish. Aaron, we got to turn it over to you, buddy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to note, and we should probably talk to our friend Dan Tom about, he's like the Southpaw whisperer. We saw that Gerald Meerschaert did a really good job against Mahmoud, and he's a Southpaw, and so is Caio. So I think stylistically, that's not a good sign for Mahmoud Muradov. To me, this is a really volatile fight, and one that I'll be staying away from. But if I'm going to just make a pick, I think Caio Borralho wins this fight more often than not. He's a really smart fighter. He was, I think, a little bit less than impressive in his last fight, and maybe that's why the line isn't as high. And I mean, but on the flip side of that, Muradov was like a minus 500 favorite against Gerald Meerschaert, and now he's a plus 165 underdog in the next fight, right? So it could be a market overcorrection on both ends, right? Like it's really hard to know. So this is one that I think I'm going to stay away from. I'm going to watch. I'm going to enjoy. Muradov's a really, really talented fighter, so I certainly wouldn't fault anybody for taking him here. But this one's just a pass from me. I could see it ending in so many varieties of ways, and those are the type of fights I always avoid.
Yeah, I agree. The line overcorrection for sure. I mean, whether it was wrong on Gerald Meerschaert, I mean, that line was absolutely insane. I mean, as Gerald showed you, the line was wrong. But yeah, the overcorrection here is certainly high, so it does raise some question marks. So yeah, but like you said so perfectly, I think Caio does get it done. So we can move right along, right, TB? Let's get to it. This fight, I'm unbelievably excited for, because you don't necessarily get to see Volkan Oezdemir fight too many times per year. So when he does get to fight, I'm always excited, because he knows how to get it done.
He does seem to be more active as of recent. Maybe I guess he's It's great to see him healthy and getting the opportunities. And maybe he keeps the momentum here is the question. Both guys coming in off victories. Oezdemir plus 145, Krylov minus 170, the over 1.5 at minus 150. I'm looking at that line. It looks a little tasty. Under 1.5 at plus 120. Oezdemir, he is giving up a little height, 1 inch, 2.5 inches of reach. Giving up 4.5 inches of leg reach. He is 3 years older, but I don't think that it's like 3 years older in the sense that like he's like 40 something to the guys. Like it's we're talking prime years, so I don't think it's as big a difference. But yeah, he's going to be giving up a little of the height reach deal, but I think he makes up for it in size. And even against guys like Rakic, we see him using that size to his advantage in the clinch situations, takedown defense situations. I think that's pertinent here. Krylov spends like the exact amount of time that Oezdemir spends in like total control is the time that Krylov spends from distance. So they're two opposite fighters in that regard. And I think it depends on who gets to live in whose world. But even so, even if Oezdemir is in Krylov's world, I mean, the dude doubles up his opponent control rate with his control rate. Like Oezdemir is that's for someone that's faced DC. Oezdemir is not. We bet Paul Craig by submission because we thought his grappling wasn't capable. Well, did we learn our lesson or no? Right?
I certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, originally you just don't. I mean, he's been taken down, 6 times on 42 attempts. Obviously, the Paul Craig fight adds to that immensely. Probably doubles up the takedowns faced in his career.
But not necessarily, because you see somebody, and this is where you sold me on Volkan Oezdemir. It's that you see the Alexander Rakic fight. 1 of 9. That dude's a stud wrestler, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see against Ilir Latifi, I think Ilir Latifi goes 0 for 6. Like, you're not just taking this guy down like so easily. And one thing I will say about our Paul Craig submission bet, that doesn't necessarily make it the dumbest bet of all time. He has his ankle, he has his leg, he's got his calf. He had the submissions there. He just didn't get them. Volkan was hip to the game. And to that, he earned my respect, but apparently not the bookmakers' respect. And that's what I don't necessarily understand. Why would Krylov be minus 170 here? Because he just flatlined the ghost of Alexander Gustafsson?
The ghost.
That didn't mean I don't even want that because that wasn't Alexander Gustafsson. I refuse to let my mind believe that. So, like, that guy got KO'd. So what does that mean to me? What did that tell me?
Yes. This is what
Justin didn't tell me anything.
That means Volkan's going to knock out Krylov, right?
Listen, it's been a while since we've seen No Time do something like that, right? His last knockout was the Ilir Latifi knockout in 2019. It's been a while. So that being said, he's fought, solid competition since then. Paul Craig, who has a decent chin, Magomed Ankalaev, who's, probably the dark horse of the division, Jiri Prochazka, who's your champ, and Rakic, who, should be literally right up there. So I like Oezdemir here for sure. And Krylov, who is Krylov to be trusted at minus 170? Like, seriously, he's lost 1, 2, 3. He's lost 3 of his last 5. Why is he favored? Maybe Aaron's got the answer for me.
No, I'm with you. I'm completely aligned with you. I probably will be betting on Oezdemir. I just realized his line at FanDuel is better than anywhere else, plus 158. But this is the one that has really caught my eye, is Oezdemir by decision at plus 500. Like, this is a guy who's been fighting with a really high fight IQ, who's been keeping himself out of trouble and has been able to evade any sort of situation where he can get finished. I don't think that Krylov is going to be able to get a submission here. Like you mentioned, if Paul Craig couldn't get one, I don't think Krylov is the guy. The submission prop on Krylov is like plus 300. I'm thinking, like, the guy's, I went and looked at his history. He's had 1 submission in the last like 8 years or something. Like, I don't know where they're getting this line. It's not like Oezdemir is like prone to getting subbed all the time. That's subbed by Anthony Smith and by like Kelly Anunson 9 years ago. Like, I mean, I think that this is a fight that Oezdemir, you got a guy with a really high fight IQ in Oezdemir and a guy who's had very suspect fight IQ in Nikita Krylov over the years. Got cut in Von Flus and stuff. Like, I don't understand this line either. I'll probably be taking a Oezdemir at plus 158 and then sprinkling on him by a decision at plus 500.
I love it. I love when a sharp mind like Aaron's is agreeing with us. It really validates the work that we do. So that's awesome. I do. I love that line. It doesn't really make any sense. and taking the dog shot here. I
There's
think it's
another
like
this next fight is a total nonsense line that we're gonna get to.
Oh baby.
oh
Let's
my goodness,
go.
yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. But
All
yeah,
right.
you're gonna see Volkan Oezdemir on here for sure because we don't have to wait for weigh-ins to see that.
No, not at this
So,
weight
guys,
class. Not with these guys.
So really, guys, make sure you're following us on Bet MMA and make sure you're checking Saturday, day of the fights, because we're always live updating right up until the fights go live. So that's where you get our free plays. Bet MMA.
Yep. So here we go. As Aaron was talking about, we are on to our next fight. Zubaira Tukhugov versus Lucas Almeida. Both guys same age. Tukhugov giving up 3 inches of height, giving up 3 inches of reach, 3.5 inches of leg reach. Definitely interesting. But he's also got 7 more UFC fights and has the benefit of also having Khabib Nurmagomedov in his corner, right? So Tukhugov, he's had a few interesting matchups in his career that kind of tint the way that I see him overall. I mean, generally, what's his game plan? Like, he's a boxer that doesn't really wrestle enough for what you would think his wrestling skills are. Like, does he not have the same gas tank as all these other guys? I guess that's my question. Like, Tukhugov, what can we expect of you game plan wise? Because I think, we saw, what he had a draw with Lerone Murphy, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, Guru, like I think Tukhugov money line here is what I think.
I just love the way you phrased all that because to me as a layman, not necessarily as technical an eye as you or somebody like you or Aaron, I was trying to think to myself like, okay, in terms of football, right? Teams have an identity in terms of what they want to do and what they want to go out there to. They want to establish the run. They want to throw the pass. Great. I'm thinking to myself, what is Tukhugov's identity? What does he like to do? And I'm like, I don't really know. He likes to do a little bit of everything. He not super game plan specific, it seems, in terms of that. I'm not sure if it's a fight IQ thing or what it is, but he's just kind of super willing to just do all the MMA. And that being said, I think he does it a lot better than Lucas Almeida. I'm not sure why the line seems really close for some reason. Like, I like Lucas Almeida a lot. I think he's an exciting fighter. His loss to Daniel Zellhuber, which we thought was a good, decent showing, right? From Zellhuber's a decent talent, maybe not so much. Now nobody's really sure that the jury's still out on that. And Mike Trizano, he beats Mike Trizano, and Mike Trizano doesn't necessarily want to stand with him as he pushes him into the clinch. But with all that being said, if you remember the end of that first round, he's got Lucas Almeida doing the chicken dance and drops, like hardcore chicken dance. So Zubaira, he hits hard, man. He throws really straight punches, and he's very specific about when he throws, right? It's not, as you can see from those numbers, it is not necessarily a high amount of output, but it's like almost just enough, and he's got some decent power. So I do like Zubaira here. What do you think, Aaron?
All right. So first off, this line minus 155 plus 135, I got no problem with it. I think it's perfect. Like it's a great line.
Okay.
The thing that confuses me is Lucas Almeida is a live by the sword, die by the sword fighter. He's gone to one decision in his career and he lost that decision. All of his wins are inside the distance. Plus 135 money line. For him to win by TKO, KO, or sub, so inside the distance basically, on FanDuel is plus 460. Like, are you?
Whoa!
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you get that much more value when that's his only path to victory? So hey, could he win a decision again? It's MMA, but his absolute best path to victory is to get a finish here. Plus 460, you're gonna make $3 free on that line. Wow. And then on the other side of that, FanDuel also has Almeida plus 135, decision equal no bet. So, take that. I don't think Tukhugov is going to finish this guy. Like, what's his finish rate? Is 40% finish rate in MMA? Zubaira Tukhugov. And that's his MMA career, not UFC. Total finish.
He's got
40%.
He's got 2 finishes in the UFC. One over Ernest Chavez, who I've never heard of. Ernest Chavez. And he beat Kevin Aguilar. So, for what it's worth.
Okay. Well,
both
Kevin Aguilar is a pretty durable guy, so that's something. But I mean, like those two lines are baffling to me. I jumped right on that plus 460 for Almeida by KO or submission. Like Zubaira's been finished a couple times in the UFC. Like this isn't the guy who's got a granite chin or anything like that. So that to me had huge value. And then I also I'll sprinkle on the Almeida plus 135 decision equals no bet because I don't think Chookagian finishing this guy. So you just get your money back. Like if he wins a decision. So that's the way I'm approaching this. But that plus 460 line just made no sense to me. And maybe people just aren't looking that far into this fight, like looking at props for like a weirdo fight on this card. But that one to me is just like, it seemed like it just screamed value.
It certainly does, because whether you like Lucas Almeida or not to win this fight, which for the record I don't, but if he's gonna win this fight, he's gonna win by finish. So
yeah, so if he's plus 135 money line,
it's his win condition. He's going to win by finish if he wins. And to your point, and maybe to Lucas's chance here, who's the more active fighter right now? Lucas. And we're gonna have to see some, big upsets, some crazy finishes on this card. Maybe this is one of them right here. Zubair has his last time he was finished was in 2012 on S70, his, I guess, whatever Russian promotion. It wasn't Fight Nights Global, and then he goes to Cage Warriors, and then he gets his UFC chance. He's 2 losses were one a split decision to Renato Moicano and a split decision to Hakeem Dawodu, with the split draw also to Lerone Murphy. Yeah, it's somebody that I'd really like to have seen more of. And it's been a full year since he's fought. And then it was a year since then, so it's not
like a fight of your guy.
So I guess it's not necessarily a layoff that he's not used to. So in that respect, I still kind of lean to Chookagian. I'd love to see him weigh in. There's no real reason to play it before weigh-ins. You might as well have all the information you can have.
I agree with that.
Unless you're taking unless you're taking the shot like Aaron has, because that doesn't matter about weigh-ins.
Exactly.
Lucas Almeida's win condition is by finish. So I really do like that.
Right, before you guys get to this one, I'm just going to grab a glass of water and I'll be right back.
Please
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hate to do that.
No, we got my
I've been talking all day.
I love it. Seriously, Aaron, what a wonderful guy. Make sure you're following him if you're not already. That would be insane that you're not.
Even grandma watching. Daz's grandma, hell yeah.
Well, Daz, make sure your grandma likes and subscribes to all of our stuff. Twitter Verdict, Instagram, Tapology. We stay live on all these things. We interact with anybody that's willing to interact with us on these social media websites. Please send it out there. Dude, you could have 3 followers. It doesn't matter. Just retweet it. You have no idea how much it means.
Exactly.
So, thanks, guys. Really.
Yeah.
Super.
But,
I'm gonna be heading to Mexico. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm heading to Mexico during these cards, during this card. So I'm trying to figure out the stress of having to try to figure out how to watch it. Listen, it's a good stress. Don't get me wrong, but somewhere on the plane, I'll be going from the plane to the hotel, when the main event is starting, main card is starting. What am I gonna be able to do? Yeah,
this guy.
I'm gonna do whatever I can to watch it. Yeah. So
wow, that is a busy time.
It is busy.
Yeah, but
honestly, it actually gives us a chance. It does give us a chance, though, to talk about next week, right? So we're gonna probably have an abbreviated show next week with no guest, because I will be in Mexico for most of the week. So I was letting all the fans know that now. But we'll still be doing at least a small abbreviated show on some level, and then we're back full hardcore the week after with a guest. So now that Aaron is aquafied.
The guru takes over Mexico. That's the next chapter of Ground Combat.
Absolutely. We're excited.
So Guru will be away this weekend, but don't worry. I'll be running around watching the fights, doing my thing. So it's all good. It's all good. We'll keep you guys updated
on our best CTB. Say what's up.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be at some casino or Xfinity Live or something like that where they're showing the fights. I'll definitely be watching the main card somewhere around there. So other than that, though, I'll be traipsing around, man. Got it on my phone, check some updates. So all right, so here we go. We got Abubakar Nurmagomedov, or as the DC insists, it's Manap is what they call him, versus Gaji Omargadzhiev. This fight, we're looking at a minus 165 for Nurmagomedov, a plus 145 for plus 140 Omargadzhiev. Then you got over 2.5 minus 195, under 2.5 plus 160. Omargadzhiev going to be 2 inches taller, but giving up a little bit of reach in both departments. I think Guru had a really good angle here. I don't trust Nurmagomedov. I don't think that he's the type of guy that I would be putting at a minus 165. Probably getting some name bump, but Guru, I liked your prop the best if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I just like the fight not to go the distance in general, right? So this fight not to go the distance is plus
Doesn't go the
152.
distance.
So I don't necessarily trust either one of these guys. And I don't want to lay the chalk on Abukar because he hasn't shown himself to be that trustworthy. Right? He gets subbed round 1 versus David Zawada, is completely distraught afterwards. Can't believe that he tapped, can't believe that he's in that position, but he is. Beats Jared Gooden, and we'll leave it at that. Jared Gooden's no longer in the UFC. And now he's got a fight against Gadzio Murgadziev, who is somebody whose UFC debut really couldn't have gone any worse, other than maybe getting flatline knocked out in 30 seconds. Like generally, there was like a really, really bad look for a debut, and which is interesting because he was coming off the first ever knee bar on contender series history. So when you look at all those things, like I'd like to think or hope for Godzi's sake that he's not as bad as he's looked, but I don't know. So we'll see whether he's, fringe UFC competition or actually in there. And then Abukar Nurmagomedov is somebody with, that wants to use his wrestling at times, but doesn't necessarily have the most dominant top control, and then is kind of willing to strike, but shows holes in the striking game. So first off, jumping out to me, I'll pull a little Bronsteter here. Omagadziev by submission at plus 700 on FanDuel. That line is absolutely astronomical, as that's Godzi's favorite way to win, and Abukar's already been subbed twice, or at least twice. I think it's 3 times. Nope, it's twice. She's been subbed twice, so that's like a big deal. And and like I said, generally fight not to go the distance in general, but why couldn't Abukar get a finish? Kaio nearly did. The dude didn't really want to fight anymore. I guess technically, right? If you bought, right? No, I guess not. If you had bet a finish in that fight, technically it's not a finish, right? Because it's a majority, it's a technical decision.
Okay, so it's the fight goes to decision, but the fight doesn't go the distance. That's why you got to be careful what you play.
Okay, so if it was a fight doesn't go the distance prop, you got it. But if it was a fight goes to decision prop, you did not get it.
Correct. So
okay,
be careful out there, folks. Be careful about the verbiage of your books.
Those bookie cockroaches.
All right. Well, Aaron, what do you got? Yeah, I don't know what just happened there, but the spirit of Al Pacino coming out of Guru, is that what it was? Yeah, I don't know if we could wipe that. I don't know. It's okay. Maybe the people liked it, but we got Aaron. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, this is like volatility city, so I'll probably pass on this altogether. But like,
That's
oh my
fair.
God, Giev!
Yeah,
this guy. Oh my gosh! I mean, we'll see how he does in this fight. But yeah, like you said, I mean, maybe his first fight was an anomaly in the UFC, but I think this is one of the situations where you just wait and see. I actually had Zawada by submission in that fight against them, like plus 900. Give myself a little Barry Horowitz on that one, and that's because I saw Abubakar prior to coming to the UFC, and this is a guy, when he is on, he's really good. But if he's having an off night, he gets caught in all kinds of weird varieties of ways. So that's why I don't like betting on his fights just kind of as a rule, unless I can extract some sort of value on the other side usually. And like you mentioned, when someone has the last name Nurmagomedov, like oftentimes you'll see the decision prop be like, this is one thing I always noticed early in Said Nurmagomedov's career. He's like not even really a relative of Khabib, and he's a striking based fighter. And the KO prop on him was always like plus 1,100, plus 1,000, because everybody just expected him to be a wrestler. So I used to like just always hit that. I used to just, whenever it was Said Nurmagomedov by KO, it was like plus 900, plus 1,000. Like, because the books see, or whoever the lines makers see Nurmagomedov, and the public sees Nurmagomedov, and they think he's just wrestle. And even Abubakar Nurmagomedov, while he's a good wrestler, he oftentimes keeps the fight standing. So again, just volatility city for me. This is a total pass. It's not even favorite pass, dog to pass, just pass.
Nice. No, so as they would say, no touching.
No touching.
No touching.
No touching. And Aaron, that's one of the more important things as well in terms of a betting podcast, right? Is also bankroll management. There are so many fights and so many spots on this card. Be strategic. Strategery. Be like a laser. So don't So don't bet this fight if you don't have to, unless you're a degenerate and need some action. Don't do it. And even if still you're a degenerate, put your action elsewhere. We got Armin Petrosyan. Put your action on this fight instead.
Let's go, Armin Petrosyan. Yeah, this one should be interesting. I think we are gonna see this could be Action City. We got Petrosyan minus 205, Dobson plus 175, over 1.5 is a minus 120, under 1.5 a minus 110. Petrosyan 2-inch height advantage, but he's giving up 5 inches of reach, which is interesting. And Dobson out of Immortal MMA. So, even if you knock him out, can you really trust that he's fully knocked out? And then I guess overall, it's like Petrosyan should win the volume battle. The question is, does Dobson have, does he have I guess Dobson technically on paper is, he's really close as far as the pace goes, but Petrosyan, I think, is going to land with more damage to more levels. And I don't think Dobson's really going to go in there like with a takedown approach or anything. I mean, it's not like, I get you don't want to shoot any on Jacob Malkoun, but like Petrosyan, even if he does go the takedown approach on Petrosyan, which he very well could, I suppose, I think Petrosyan is really good at shucking and getting back to his feet. And I think Borralho just kind of showed how talented he is at backpacking and re-dumping guys and scrambling. And because Petrosyan does do a really good job of making Borralho work for it in that fight. But Borralho, he gets some control. I just don't think Dobson has the cardio to go for that same type of game plan. So, Petrosyan minus 205, how am that's
that's what I was thinking. But as I continue to kind of rack my brain about it, I believe AJ Dobson is a wrestler. No, so so you see him get tired in his last fight, which by the way is his debut. And it's against the volume wrestling of Jacob Malkoun. He can't get up. He's absolutely exhausted after round 1. But he stuffs all those takedowns. Jacob Malkoun is 0 for 7 going into the end of that round 1. And then by the 8th one, Dobson is so tired and he just has nothing left for him and then gets smothered for the rest of the fight. Petrosyan's not going to necessarily go for any takedowns, and he's shown his own grappling deficiencies. He had that split decision with RoboCop, which was amazing, incredible fight. So I think if this fight happens more like that fight, that's obviously more in Armin Petrosyan's wheelhouse, right? He's a fantastic kickboxer. But if AJ Dobson kind of keeps it more not in kickboxing range, more against the clinch, actually tries to tire him out and maybe does have better cardio, if his cardio didn't fail him because he was getting out grappled, then I kind of almost like Dobson, but I was so strong on Petrosyan too. So I want to see face-offs here. I definitely want to hear what Aaron has to say. And I'm just not sure, because as I'm thinking back to what I said about myself, there's so many spots on this card. If you're not feeling it, Mr. Krabs, don't do it. So I'm not sure if I'm 100% sold anymore. Aaron, what do you got?
I might take a sprinkle on Petrosyan wins in round 3 as plus 800. And the reason being is we talk about the cardio of AJ Dobson, and against Malkoun, he was completely gassed in the 3rd round. But as we saw this past weekend, Jacob Malkoun couldn't finish the one-legged man. I mentioned the Drakkar Close couldn't finish the sandwich. That's generous talking about Malkoun. If anybody ever takes Malkoun inside the distance, I don't know what you're doing. And then at the end, they're like, "Why didn't you kick the legs?" And he's like, "I'm not really comfortable kicking." I'm like, "You're a mixed martial artist. You don't train kicking? You don't train leg kicks?" So first off, I had the over in that fight, and I was like, "Okay, I'll rip this ticket up." I had it in a parlay, the over 2.5, Malkoun and Maximov, and I was like, "Yeah, rip this ticket up. This fight's not getting to the 3rd round. He's probably got one leg. It goes all the way to a decision." I couldn't that's a thank your lucky stars moment. But in this situation, Petrosyan's a really good volume striker. If AJ Dobson gets tired, that's where you see those volume strikers take over late in the fight and get some momentum. So Petrosyan wins in round 3. It's plus 800. It's not great value. It might get better. Usually those props get better as it gets closer to the fight. So if that gets to plus 900, plus 1,000, I think I'll probably just take a little sprinkle on that one. But Dobson wins in round 1 at plus 650 isn't bad either when you look at how AJ Dobson wins most of his fights in round 1, and we've seen Petrosyan lose in round 1 before. Maybe we haven't seen it, but he has lost in round 1 before. So, you could maybe just sprinkle on both of those, honestly, and hope that one of those outcomes happens, because I think those are two potential outcomes, but then you're kind of spreading yourself thin there, right? So maybe just pick one or the other, or don't pick anything, because again, another volatile fight where it's really hard to gauge what's going to happen, because I don't think we've seen AJ Dobson much beyond the first round, and the Malkoun sample size is tough to swallow, because that type of fight is something that would tire out pretty much anybody going to the third round.
True. I agree, but now I think I'm back on where my strength was, or where my strong feeling was, and that is on the Armen Petrosyan money line. One of the things that you do see from Petrosyan on the tape is that, yeah, he may get taken down a lot, but his takedown defense, like to get back up, is actually really impressive. So I don't think AJ Dobson is going to be able to rinse and repeat in terms of the wrestling, and I'm pretty damn sure that he doesn't have the cardio to maintain it. So I really actually like that thought, Aaron. But I'll do you one better, and I'll raise you Petrosyan round 3 or decision on FanDuel at plus 200.
Oh, I'd probably take that instead.
There we go.
Thank you. So that's there you go. I like that much better.
Oh, there you go. So you don't have to bet round 3. You don't have to bet decision. You can get them both.
Yeah, I like that. I'll probably be on that.
Hell yeah. Let's get it. So
look at the guru being of assistance. You gotta love it.
Yeah, I try to comb the board, but you miss things. Things fall through the cracks here and there. We're talking about like 1,000+ different props overall.
Absolutely,
some things.
Listen, you seem to find those big numbers, plus 800, plus 1,000. I'm a cheap date. Give me a plus 100, give me a plus 150. I'm in. So
well, then you're gonna like this next analysis.
Oh yes, I'm excited. Do it.
So we've got Muhammad Mokaev. I wrote a minus 850, obviously, earlier. This thing, I mean, we're at like what, minus like 1,100.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So okay, it's runaway. Malcolm Gordon plus like 700 now. Mokaev, they're about the same height. Mokaev giving up reach, has a little bit extra leg reach, 1 inch difference each way. Over 1.5 minus 115, under 1.5 at minus 115. So are they? Vegas isn't sure. Is this going past the 7.5 minute mark? Watching Malcolm Gordon versus Denise Bandar, I mean, he hurts him on the feet. Malcolm Gordon hurts Denise Bandar on the feet before anything even happens in the grappling department. But what kind of scares me is that Malcolm Gordon, being the jiu-jitsu player, is happy to let guys go into his guard, which means the takedown from Bandar is successful. Now, Mokaev, the question is, with all of his amateur experience, is he experienced enough to not let his arms get, because basically that was a Paul Craig move, the Malcolm Gordon, like that was the same thing we basically saw, like the setup was the same thing that Paul Craig did to Jamal Hill. And then he ends up in like a deeper armbar past that first attempt, but it's like that double underhook grip in the arms and it starts just ripping out of the socket, and then next thing you know, you're defending that, and then he's into a full armbar. So Mokaev, can he defend these awkward grappling positions, or does Gordon have a chance? I lean to the side of Malcolm Gordon's chin. We've seen all throughout his career be on the questionable side of things. So of all of his losses, he has lost a submission to Albazi by a triangle, but his other 4 have been by knockout. So that's where I started digging a little bit, and I go look at the winning methods. And ultimately, I thought Mokaev by knockout at plus 240 being, the least probable winning method on DraftKings. I thought that I would be fading some sort of narrative there. And also Mokaev, like, he hurts Cody Dern with a flying knee before he submits him. That same thing lands on Malcolm Gordon. They call him fight for a knockout first. That's my thought.
So one thing I'll tell you is, of course, what you love to do. If the DraftKings line is one thing, especially on a prop, that means FanDuel is going to have it a little bit juicier. So that plus 240 knockout is plus 280 over on our boys on FanDuel. So if that's the side you like, I certainly like that.
Thank you, Guru.
I'm going to go a little bit. I do really like that knockout, by the way. I'm going to go one step further, right? I really like Mokaev, right? And under 1.5. You can get that at minus 115. And then this was a maybe I'm just excited because I played this prop last week. I hit Pete Rodriguez last week, right? Knockout in round 1 was minus 190. I played Pete Rodriguez and under a half a round at plus 200. Why not play Mokaev and under a half a round at plus 330? There's a very good chance that he knocks this guy out or chokes him out in under 2.5 minutes. So
Wow.
a little grandma's couch cushion play
Wow.
on that.
Oh, yeah.
While maybe taking a little bit more sizable stab on just the knockout shot, or even the round 1 or 2 grouping in general. I like it all. Give me all that. I don't trust Malcolm Gordon. Clearly the books don't either. And again, I would love to see a guy like this like pull it off somehow, but I don't know. I don't think it's in the cards. What do you think, Aaron?
One of my absolute favorite plays on this card is in this fight, and it's fight doesn't start round 3 is minus 140. I mean, look, you're just trying to extract good value and find really, really easy lines, and this to me just screams easy line. I mean, both of these guys are really opportunistic finishers. Malcolm Gordon's always going for stuff, and if he doesn't get it, his opponents have been able to capitalize and be able to put him out. And Mokaev is this guy's smelling blood. And I think after that last performance against Charles Johnson, where it was very, very pedestrian performance in the eyes of a lot of people, it didn't do much, wasn't attacking, was fighting a conservative game plan. I think in this situation, he's going to be in attack mode. But at the same time, if you leave an opening, Malcolm Gordon is one of these guys who can find it. Like he's a really, really aggressive fighter. So I don't want to write off. I hate writing fighters off completely. I think more often than not, Makhachev wins this fight. I mean, look, that's the reality. But why not just not bother with a side in this situation? Just take the easy way out here. Minus 140, fight doesn't start round 3. I would be shocked. First off, if this fight starts round 2, I'd be surprised. But starting round 3 to me, it seems like almost a non-starter. And then another thing, if you look at it, you can get fight doesn't go to a decision at minus 235. Yeah. So like you just need a finish. Like that's one of those ones. If you parlay that with like Chookagian and Fiorot goes to a decision, it's like even money. It's like, I don't know. I try not to overthink these things when you have these things that are staring you in the face. And it's like, yeah, this is probably going to happen. That's usually what you take. And when you look at the way Makhachev can win this fight, can he get a knockout? Maybe. Can he get a submission? Maybe. Can he get a round 1 finish? Maybe. Round 2 finish? Possibly. I mean, Malcolm Gordon's probably not going to get a knockout, but he, is a submission possible? Although Malcolm Gordon does have 5 knockout wins on his record. So I always hate the worst thing is when you take like somebody who you think is going to have a really easy way to win. And they end up losing to like a big underdog. Like you feel like garbage. So minus 140 doesn't start round 3. Let's not overthink these things. I think that's a really, really good value line.
Sharp.
Okay,
that is really, really sharp stuff. Dude.
Okay.
The more if any of that wasn't incredible enough, how about just the line value in general? Minus 175 on DraftKings, minus 140 FanDuel. I mean, that right there has me titillated enough. Not even mentioning your stellar handicapping. So I'm sold. That's definitely a play I like.
Love it. All right, well, guys, we did it. We're at the curtain jerker. We got our opening fight of the card, and I know no one can wait for Karol Rosa versus Lena Lansberg. They've all been waiting. What is her nickname? Is it the Elbow King, Lena Lansberg?
Elbow King.
Elbow Queen. Oh yeah. Oh jeez. Obviously.
King Casey O'Neill, so I'll give you a little bit of a pass, but
and listen, it's getting late. We're chronic combat. We're getting towards the end of the show here, but we can get forgetful here or there. But as opposed to the Elbow Queen, I would call Lena Lansberg the Clinchy Queen. Like she has a 29% control and a 43% opponent control. However, she's only landed 5 takedowns herself. What does that tell you? 29% control, but only 5 takedowns. I think she's in the clinch a lot. When you're averaging over at 7 minutes of control per takedown, you have to keep in mind that the rounds are only 5 minutes long. So the clinch queen, here she is. And Karol Rosa, listen, she was in all these positions with Sarah McMahon, everything like that. Karol Rosa at minus 305, Lansberg at plus 255. Karol Rosa's in like all my parlays. It just seems too obvious. I don't want to overthink this. When you talk about a 12-year age difference, then you're really starting to talk. You're talking about your prime versus, Guru's favorite cut from the UFC on Tuesday. We see the UFC roster watch. I got to give the Guru credit, But so ultimately, that's my big, Caio Borralho and Karol Rosa is going to be a parlay for me. Whether or not that fully gets me to plus money or not, we'll see after weigh-ins because I'm not doing it till I see all these guys face off. But Karol Rosa, I just got a feeling here. This is just a thank you. Sorry, McMahon took you out, and you'll get it back here. So we'll have a big play that has Rosa as an anchor. It's just about is Borralho the final piece? Petrosyan potentially. Who knows where we end up finally on all these things. But that's an anchor for me.
100%. My main goal will be making sure the anchor we tie that to is not an anchor around our necks, but one that actually propels us into some green money. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to give you guys much of a technical breakdown. I think Kyle Host is better everywhere. And I think you said it perfectly. I think this should be a fight that they're giving her just to kind of get another dub under her belt and keep her moving along, because she's a fairly marketable fighter, fairly talented fighter. Has the girlfriend that is also just got in Dana White Contender Series and just had her debut in one as well. So I think they're going to keep rattling them off, and I don't see why not. Lena Lansberg, like TB said, I believe she finds herself on the UFC roster watch Tuesday on Twitter, unfortunately to her. But hey, at 40 years old, she probably was going to hang him up anytime now, hopefully anyway. So Aaron, one last time, what do you got for us?
I'm aligned with you guys. I think that she's an easy parlay piece. Like Tyler said, let's not overthink things. Massive age difference, massive talent difference, and the good thing about this is it's the very first fight on the card. So if you're going to put her in some parlays and for whatever reason it blows up, you can rebuild. And that's always a good way to look at it with parlays, is like if you have somebody early on in the card and things don't go your way, you can always find other pieces to make up for it down the stretch. And I was actually surprised. Usually pay-per-views, I'm very, very economical with my spots, but I just saw so many different things that I really liked on this card. Now, who would I parlay Karol Rosa with? I think Petrosyan is an option, but I also really like a lot of these over props, like the over 2.5 and like Chookagian Fiorot. The fight doesn't go in Oliveira versus Islam. Like these are the ones that seem like a lot higher probability propositions than just taking Petrosyan against a really tough opponent, right? So like that's probably the way that I'm going to approach it. Is if I am going to use Rosa in parlays, it'll probably be with props rather than individual fighters.
I agree 1,000%, Aaron. You're so, not only you're just an incredible reporter and a wonderful person, but you are sharp as a tack, man. I really appreciate having you.
Couldn't agree more.
Amen. And hey, I don't know, I tried doing my best here before the show to kind of come up with our ideas, give you guys sticking around here to the end, just a little bit more tangible. Yeah, visual appearance of what we're really leaning towards as we come out of the show. It felt really good because, I mean, even though you guys might think otherwise, like we didn't talk to Aaron ahead of time about any of our picks, and it just so happens you get super smart guy in the room with a couple of mildly intelligent people, and we start connecting some things. You know what I mean?
Dariush was kind of like, that was our one kind of opposing views.
Definitely, but yeah, exactly. But you know what? That's nice. We always like having some back and forth too. And for the last time, we're going to bring you guys back to the telethon because we just gave you a beautiful graphic with, all of our ideas and everything. So the least you guys could do at this point, right? You'd think if you've been watching this long, all that, you would have thought you've already liked, you would have thought you've already subscribed to our channel, but chances are you didn't. Right. So please do it at this point. If you guys could just drop a like, it means so much for like the algorithm and getting our channel popping. And like, dude, we'll be at PFL doing media day, weigh-ins, all that stuff. Again, we'll be going live from this channel. So make sure you follow us here because it's proprietary content. There's no ESPN or UFC putting on their YouTube channel for the PFL weigh-ins or anything. It'll be coming from Crown of Combat. So, and other people too, but we hope you guys are following us. So, Guru, well, Aaron, I mean, do you have any last thoughts here, man, before we end up kicking it off?
No, nothing really. I mean, I did my TSN Edge picks earlier today. They were Oliveira and Islam ends in submission. They were Chookagian by decision plus 250. I did a parlay. I think it was like Chookagian and Fiorot goes to a decision. Oliveira and Makhachev does not go to a decision. And I think it might have been... Oh, and then it was that Gordon Mokaev doesn't start round 3. I had that parlay. It's something like plus 200 almost.
Wow.
Because it's only minus 140 for the doesn't start round 3 on the Mokaev fight. And then I like that Dariush submission at plus 1,000 I mentioned to you guys. That was my dart throw this week. And I think that might be it off the top of my head. I can't remember if I had anything else, but those were the ones that really stood out to me for this particular week. Oh, and the Almeida plus 460 to win by TKO or submission. Or KO, TKO, or submission,
You're a true value boy, Aaron, and we all appreciate it. I know the listeners do too. So we won't keep you any longer. We basically kidnapped you here for 2 hours, man. But seriously, thank you so much for hanging out with us and breaking down these fights. You're truly an awesome guy, and we really had a blast.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. I'd love to do it anytime. It's funny. A lot of people, when it comes to reporters, they love it's really all about news and stuff, and it becomes kind of like a news cycle. For me, like I love Saturday nights, and I love looking at the matchups and breaking them down and going like matchup by matchup, looking for these kind of anomalies and interesting things in terms of the betting lines. Like you don't find a lot of people that do what I do that really love that side of it as well.
Wow.
Because like I kind of came from this world in terms of my media career. So I'm it's more second nature to me than it is a lot of other people. So I'm always happy to do shows. I listen to a lot of shows like this on a week-to-week basis, right? I'm going to have to add you guys to my rotation if I have enough time in a week to get through. I listen to podcasts at 1.75 speed, and that's probably why you notice me talking so fast. It's because that's how I consume my content.
We're actually I recommend it to anybody that listens to us. I truly recommend listening to us at 1.5 or 1.75 speed, and I really mean that because we have a long podcast and a lot of good stuff, but fast forward it. It's all good. I listen to one of my favorite football podcasts, 3-hour-long podcast, 1.5 speed, like same idea. It's no disrespect to us. Like you get through all of it. Actually, we actually appreciate it more. So that's a very good point, Aaron. And Aaron, you are part of the family. Anytime you want to come back, the doors are wide open. Mi casa es su casa.
Awesome, thanks guys. Yeah, I saw our guy Brad Tazchuk earlier. I've been listening. Yeah. I've been an analysis listener for like longer than I've been covering the sport. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, definitely. MMA analysis. Dan, Tom, all the friends in the hat, like all one in the community.
Big fraternity over here.
That's right. We love being added to even the lower rung of the group. You know what I mean? Like just even being at the party at all is fantastic.
Man, listen, the invitation. It's right. Whether you win by 1,000 points or 1 point, right? A dub's a dub. Whether you got invited like last minute or you were one of the main VIPs. Hey, you're still at the party. So we're at the dance.
Just getting initiated on the regular. That's
exactly.
Trying to find your way in.
Exactly. Right. Aaron, thank you so much for coming. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Take care. We'll be back next week for an abbreviated show with Cater versus Allen. What an incredible fight. Oh my goodness. Can't wait for that one, but we got a barn burner till then. So stay tuned and check Bet MMA for our final bets. Take care, everybody.